country is moving to. Leadership that are so myopic, they think about their family, and you can see that in the state creation and the local government. My girlfriend is okay, take one local government. You have to take one state. You just give. Okay, my wife is from Asaba. Okay, one state. You are from the 40 local government. That kind of thing. So you have that. They are merely ad hoc. People don't sit down to look at the ingredients. This soup we are cooking. So you just come, you throw one bag of salt inside. You come, you throw pepper inside. You won't have a good soup. So we've had people that merely moving like after the First Republic, of course. If you look at Awolowo and Nnamdi Azikiwe and Tafawa Balewa, they are different set of people. But after then, this country, and Chido Numa wrote, we are all Biafra. I think that he's right, that we are all Biafra, because what is happening there is what is happening everywhere. In fact, even the so-called majority, I call them so-called because they are even suffering more than those of us. It's a class thing. Whether Jonathan was from Niger Delta, the Niger Delta, I didn't see any one borehole in Niger Delta. Okay. So it's not about minority or majority. It's a class thing.
Okay, I want to see if I can drill down to specifics. So we've sort of talked generally about foundation. We've said leadership. We've said we've sort of been unlucky in the kind of people without a vision and all that. But if we're going to be kind of quite specific, because we're here because we want to talk and see whether we can understand the issue with a view to saying, okay, maybe this is the right solution. What did Nigeria do wrong?
We refused to share the goodness of independence properly. There were just ways of sharing. The fact that our people quarreled about sharing is a normal and proper thing. We do need to determine what is due to every citizen. And because we did not face it squarely, we allowed things to go in the wrong way. The story I began with ended in 1964. As I said, that was the first military intervention in Nigeria's history. The reason that took place was because the NCNC, and therefore the East, suddenly realized that their coalition partner took over the ground. While they took over all the jobs, the ground was taken over by the senior partner, and they had nothing. It was when the iron and steel industry that was supposed to go to Onitsha did not go there, and they saw that all the military installations and iron and steel industry, everything was in the north, that they began that process of active revolt against the coalition that was formed. For those who know Nigeria's history, that was when that same day, Ojukwu went to Gowon, went to Ejo, went to Banjo, and said, let's carry out a coup. None of them agreed. But that was where the problem began. The refusal to develop a just system of sharing. A just system of sharing is something that every country needs to design. Our leaders were not as bad as it looked. They were also outsmarted by circumstance. Circumstance in the sense that once people began to talk about not getting enough, they also started importing fictions into the narration of their own history. So that you start...
importing fiction, you have
when
to be
I say
specific.
fiction,
yes.
Fiction in the sense that things that never happened are brought into the center to prove hatred of one people for another. Many Nigerians talk as if they hate themselves so much they can not even sit down to eat. But when you look at the stories they tell, they are usually always wrong. Some of them never happened.
Professor Chidi, I really want to bring you here because you gave us an example of Tanzania, and I know in the nature of your work is such that actually you've sort of experienced and sat in different places all over Africa where issues of ethnicity, identity come to the fore. So when you hear someone like Mr. Ofemun talk, who in many ways was a witness because he was a private secretary to Chief Awolowo, it sounds almost as if there's an inevitability to where we are today. What is your view?
Inevitability in what sense? Well, if you keep making the wrong calls, you're going to end up in a ditch. It's that simple. So in that sense of, the narrow logic of inevitability of a ditch from a succession of wrong decisions, absolutely. But I don't think there is an inevitability as to where we are, and we always had a choice to course correct. As I listen to my Egmo here, you keep hearing the word sharing. Now, Nigeria wasn't founded on sharing to begin with. That's the first thing. At independence, indeed, if you go back to 1957, the Lancaster House Conference, the Willink Commission, the fears of the minorities, the idea was to foster production. Now, the sharing began in 1968, during the war, when Gowon got a body of civil servants to advise him, and they altered the formula on the basis of which we were federated, from production to sharing. That is why we are here today, that we have not tried to build a political economy that fosters productivity and production, and therefore governors don't see the human beings in their respective states as assets. Every person is deployed into a politics of trying to grab from the federal government further allocation. And so, at the end of the day, there isn't much of a difference in my school of thought between the Northeast and the Southeast. The only difference is you probably have more education in the Southeast than in the Northeast. But whether you're looking at Boko Haram or you're looking at Biafra, it is a narrative of exclusion. Exclusion from a political economy based on elite sharing, not on production.
And if that is the case, Dr. Ibrahim, why is it that one section, in your view, sees this problem and decides we want to go at it alone again for the second time, and you don't hear much, from other marginalized sections of Nigeria about wanting to break the union?
Well, I think it may not be accurate, as Chidi just said, that it's only one section trying to go it alone. He mentioned the case of the Boko Haram insurgency, where they actually formally declared secession from Nigeria.
And so that's really an attempt also to leave Nigeria from your point of view, yes.
Yeah, in 1966, the Niger Delta People's Republic also declared secession from Nigeria. And it's quite interesting when you look at our political history that all the traditional leaders we have had in our political system, from Awolowo through Ahmadu Bello to Michael Okpara, have all at one point or the other made the call for secession. I think at the core of our problem is really the question of democracy. The crisis of 1964 that Odia spoke about wasn't a crisis of sharing. It was a crisis of power. There was an election, and there was a lot of friction about a level playing ground for the election. And in particular, some of the political parties felt that it was an elaborate rigging machine. And that feeling that that election is not going to settle the question of power democratically was what generated the crisis of 1964, which was the refusal of the then President Azikiwe to accept the election results. And I think it's important to look at what were the factors that led to the crisis of 1964, because it's very important in the subsequent narrative. The first element was the crisis over the 1962 census, which was repeated, and again there was a lot of dissatisfaction with the results. There was a crisis over the electoral system itself. Don't forget the Electoral Act that was subsisting at that time made a provision for all candidates to personally submit their nomination forms to the officer in charge in the Ministry of Interior.